users and permissions. Okay. Now, since we understand that for any organization which is using CRM, or if we talk about Salesforce in particular, they will have multiple users, right? There can be multiple people who are accessing the CRM. Now, out of the people who are accessing the CRM, it's not necessary that everyone will need the same level of access. Do you think everyone is going to be a system administrator in the company? The answer is no. Everyone should see all the data? The answer is again no. Everyone works on the same process? Again, the answer is no, right? Someone is a part of the support team, someone works for the marketing, someone is a salesperson, someone is a pre-sales rep. So the roles and responsibilities are different, levels of access is different. The part of CRM that they are going to work on, that is also different. For example, if a customer support executive is accessing CRM, he's primarily accessing CRM to work on the cases, right? He's more concerned about the cases and the solutions part of it. At the same time, the sales guy might be more interested into the opportunities, might be working more on the opportunities, and might be looking into the accounts there, right? Now, if there is a kind of you know a marketing guy who actually basically is a part of the marketing communication thing, he might be more interested in the campaigns and the leads, that side of it, right? So everyone in the organization has a different role to play. Everyone is at a different level of hierarchy, and they need different levels of access. That's something which is very crucial to take care of, right? We cannot give same level of access to everyone. So first thing that we have to understand is basically how do we control the access, and at what all levels we can control the access. So the access can be controlled at each level. So whatever Salesforce components we are aware of, like we know objects, tabs, whatever you can think of, whatever is a component in Salesforce, you think of object, tab, record, field, page, anything apart from these things. So every component, access can be restricted on each component. Got it? For every component, you can control the access. Whether a certain user will have access to that component or not, that can be controlled. Okay, and that's something which is very important. So whatever you're creating or whatever you have got standard in Salesforce, for everything, it's important for us to make sure that we know that who should have access to that particular component and who should not have access, right? So that's the thing here. All right. So for controlling the access, am I audible, guys? Can I have a quick yes no in the chat window if I'm audible or not?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for confirming. How's it now? Hello? Am I still audible? Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Okay. So there are a few options which are available to us to control the to control the access and permissions of the users. Now there's a small concept which I want you to understand before we actually jump into doing the actual controlling of permissions. Understand a small concept. If there are 100 users in the company, one point that I have already made it very clear that all 100 will not need same kind of access, which is very logical and which makes a lot of sense, right? Now, so first point is everyone does not need same access. So which is pretty much logical and makes sense. So we have understood this part. Now there's one more statement which we have to understand. Everyone does not need unique access as well. Okay, so this statement is also equally true. And if 100 people do not need same access, if I cannot have the same access setting for all 100 people, I don't even need to do 100 different settings for 100 users. There will be group of users who need same kind of access. Okay, so this is what we have to understand. All 100 don't need same access, but all 100 of them don't need a unique set of access permission also, which means I don't need to have 100 different settings for 100 users. I don't need to do that. There will be set of users like all people, everyone in the sales team. They might need same kind of an access. All the people in the customer support team, they might need same kind of access. All the marketing executives might need same kind of access, right? So basically, it's good to put people who need same kind of access in a certain group and then give the same permission to that entire group. That way, you are actually managing it properly. Rather than defining permissions for individual users, we try to group people who need the same kind of access and give them the same permission, same kind of permission. Okay. So from an administrator's point of view, it becomes very simple to manage things. Got it? So basically bucketing the users into certain categories that, okay, when this bucket will have this permission, this bucket will have this permission. So out of 100, let's say I have uh, 20 sales reps, I have customer support executives, let's say I have 25 of those. I have customer support managers, let's say there are 5. Let's say I have sales managers, 5. So if these 20 people need the same kind of permission, what I can do is I can actually create a same collection of permission and give it to entire 20 users, right? So next time if I want to update something here, I just have to make one change and that will be applicable for everyone. So I just don't have to go and make it 20 times. Correct? So that's the concept. Okay, this is just a concept that I wanted you to understand how we actually work. Now we are actually going to get into what are the options available for us to control the permissions. Okay, the first option that we have here is called a profile. The first thing that we are going to deal with is a profile. What is a profile? Profile is basically a collection of permissions. Profile is basically collection of permissions. Okay, now you can put permissions into a profile and you can assign that profile to a certain user. Okay, so you can put the permissions into a profile and you can assign that profile to a certain group of users. Okay, so the same kind of concept is applicable what I was talking. Okay, so we can have profiles and then these profiles can be assigned to multiple users. One profile can be given to multiple users, right? So Salesforce has by default provided us with a lot of profiles. Let me just go back and show it to you. Okay, so here we are. If you look into the profiles, we have to basically go into manage users on the setup menu. Under manage users, we have a list of profiles here. Okay, Salesforce by default provides you with a list of standard profiles. On top of this, you also have the option of creating your own profiles as per your requirement. So if you have a requirement of creating a profile, you can do that, right? So if you feel that the Salesforce provided profiles are not good for you, then you can actually go ahead and use the profiles. You can create your own profiles basically, right? You see, there are so many of them. See, there's a standard user profile, there's a marketing user profile. So this way there are a lot of profiles, right? And there's a system administrator profile. Now this system administrator profile can be assigned to all the system administrators. Let's say in the company there are 4 system administrators. then you don't need to create a different profile for each one of them. You can just give this one. If there are 20 marketing users, you can give this profile to all the marketing users. And all the permissions which are a part of this profile will be available to that user, whoever has this profile. Got it? And where do we assign the profile to a user? While you go to the user and you click on a certain user, for example, this user, if I go to this user, you will see that there is a profile assigned to that user. If you want to change it, you can always go to edit and try changing it. Now, this is the first user, so that's the reason I'm not able to change the system administrator profile from here. But usually you will have the option of changing the permission for the profile for the users. All right, so you can update the profile, what profile you basically want to allow a certain user. All right. So profile and user is basically a one-to-many relationship, which means one profile can be given to multiple users, but not the other way around. One user cannot have multiple profiles. Okay, one profile can be assigned to multiple users, but one user cannot have multiple profiles. That's how simple it is. Right. Now, coming to what permissions are we controlling on profile? So the profile allows you to do the tab setting, which means what all tabs are available for that profile user. It also allows you to do the app setting, which means what all apps are available to a certain user. It allows you to do object setting, basically control the object permissions. Instead of setting, let me use the word permission, that will make more sense here. So which all apps are going to be available to the users, which tabs are going to be available, which objects are going to be available, which fields are going to be available, field permissions. These all things are controlled by profile. There are a few more things which are controlled at a profile level, but that's something which we are going to talk a little later, not right now. So the app permissions, when a user clicks on this, every user will not have all the apps available here. So if your company has 10 apps, every user does not need to look into all these 10 apps, right? So someone who is just a part of customer support team might just need to look into the call center app. Okay, so you can restrict the other apps from the users through their profile. The same way, if someone is a part of marketing team, might not need other apps, you might just need the marketing app, right? So you don't have to display all the apps to everyone. See, when I'm talking about not showing or not exposing everything to everyone, it makes sense in two ways. One, I'm definitely trying to keep my data and information and the application secured so that people who do not need access are not unnecessarily given an access to view that. Secondly, I'm making life easier for the end users also. So one, it's benefit for the company that they are not exposing the information which is not required for the end user. Secondly, and very importantly, it's something which helps the end user as well. Just think of a situation where you are a part of the marketing team, and once you click on this, you basically see these many apps. Don't you think it's going to be confusing if I just have to work with this app? Just give me this one. Why to give me another 8 or 9 apps and confuse the end user? The same way, while I'm talking about the apps, same is applicable for tabs also. If I just work on campaign lead account contacts, give me just campaign lead account and contact. Why to put some 15-20 tabs and confuse the end user, right? So it's a win-win basically. It's a a value add for the company as well as for the end user. End user also has a better experience, better uh, user experience when only the components that they need are given. That makes things a lot better for them, right? So the app permissions can be controlled, as I said, which all apps will be visible to the end users. That can be controlled from the profile. Tab permissions can be controlled, and the object permission can also be controlled. Object permission basically means objects are basically the database tables, right? So here it's not about making the object visible or not visible, because object is a database component. These two are UI component. the front end component. So here it's a matter of whether you want to display it or you don't want to display, whether you want to show it or hide it. For object permissions, it's a matter of read, write, edit, delete. Okay, I'll put it in a different word. Read, write, call it CRUD. For object, we define a CRUD permission. What is CRUD? Create, read, update, delete. Okay, so for an object, you can define any of these permissions. Whether the user can create records in that object, whether he can see the data in that object, whether he can update the records, whether he can delete the record. Correct? Because it's about a database object, right? So it has got nothing to do on the front end. So here we are talking about whether the user should be able to create records, whether he should only be allowed to read, update, or delete, whether he should have delete permission. For example, for a sales executive, you might want him to have the delete permission, but a pre-sales executive should not have delete permission. He should not be able to delete data. He should just have the create permission. He can create data but cannot delete it. So sometimes you have requirement to give permissions at different levels, right? So for objects, it's basically root permission, and for field also, it's more like read only or read write or not visible. Okay, then comes the field permission. In the field permission, basically, uh, if you think of practical scenarios, some fields will be confidential fields. Let's say you are storing the information of an account and you have some confidential information about account, or think about a contact. Let's not think about account, think about a contact. There can be some information that you don't want to expose to everyone, like maybe the social security number of the person, uh, maybe the email ID of the person, mobile number in case you have, or any other information that you have, and you don't want everyone to see that. So you can make those fields which are confidential, which you don't want to display to everyone. So from certain users, you can hide them. So you can just make it not visible. Sometimes there are certain fields that you don't want some users to be able to edit. You want the user to be able to edit the entire record, but not a certain field. Let's say you don't want the end user to have the option of editing the mobile number. Then you can make that particular field as a read only. Instead of making the entire field as read only, entire record as read only, you can make one particular field as read only. Read write is basically the normal permission that the user has, right? So permissions can be controlled for apps, tabs, objects, fields. Okay, so for everything, whatever components we have talked about Salesforce, so for everything at every level, I have the option of controlling the permission. How do we do that? Now let's go to a profile and try to do this. Okay. So current user profile is system administrator. Now, if I go to system administrator profile, and if I click on edit the top, you'll see that there is a list of profile applications here at the top, custom app settings. Which all apps do you want the end user to see? So let me remove a few of them. I'll just keep sales and marketing. I'll remove everything else. Yeah, so I've just kept sales and marketing. Sales is the default app and marketing is the other app. Save it. So I made changes on the current user's profile, system administrator. So we should be able to see the changes here. Yes. You see? So all the apps are not visible now, only sales and marketing is available. Right. So the end user will only get to see the apps which are allowed on his profile. The same way we can do this for tabs also. Let me allow the apps now. Okay. Now click on edit and you have the tabs. Just below the app settings, you will find the tab settings. Under tab setting, you will see a list of all the tabs, all the standard tabs. Standard tabs basically the ones which were provided by Salesforce.com, and all the custom tabs, the ones that you created. All the tabs are listed here, and you have the option of making the tab on, off, or hidden for a certain user. Default on, default off, or hidden. Okay. Now default on, default off, hidden. What does this mean? Default on means the tab will be available and it will be visible to the user on the tab panel itself. There's a tab panel. Okay. So a tab which is default on for my profile is visible to me on the panel itself. A tab which is default off for my profile is visible to me, but it's not visible on the panel. You make a tab default off for my profile, I'll still get to see the tab, but not on the panel. I'll get to see it by clicking on all tabs. So at the last, if you see this plus sign, this is basically the symbol to take you to all tabs. You can access the tab, a tab which is default off, which is set up as default off on your profile. You can still access that tab, but you have to click on this all tabs button and access it from here. So by default it's off, but it is still available. Then there's an option tab hidden. If you make a tab as tab hidden for a certain profile, then users of that profile will not have any option to see the tabs. Okay. So if you just don't want sales guy to look into the cases at all. Okay, if you have a sales profile and you feel that the person in the sales team should not look into cases and solution at all, never ever in their life. So you can just hide the tab, just make these tabs as tab hidden. They will not have any option to look into the cases. If you want that by default the sales guy should not have this cases and solution, but sometimes if they require, they should have an option, then you should make it default off. So if they require, they can go to all tabs and access the tab. Correct. So that's the second thing, the tab settings. Now come to the object permission. If you scroll down a little further on the profile itself, you will find object permissions here. Standard object permissions and custom object permissions. Okay. Now because this is a system administrator profile, this is a system admin profile that we are editing, right? So you see everything is ticked. Everything is ticked. All the options, all the permissions are there. The system administrator can actually go and make changes in any of the object. So there is no problem at all. There's an interesting thing that you will notice here. That's that all these options are not editable. I don't have an option of going and changing this. Okay, like the earlier things like tabs and apps, I had the option of changing it. I don't have the option of changing the permissions here for standard object as well as for custom object. So object permission I'm not able to edit or update here. It's all not active, not editable, right? So we don't have the option of editing the object settings. So why and what is the reason? For standard profiles, object permissions cannot be changed. So since I am dealing with a standard profile, on a standard profile, whatever object permissions are allowed by Salesforce.com, you cannot go and change it. You don't have the option of editing the object permissions on the standard profile. Alright, you can update the app permissions, you can update the tab permissions, but you cannot update object permissions for standard profiles. Alright. So what will you do if you need, for example, in this case, I have the system administrator profile, I'm okay with this, but I don't want the delete permission to be given to the system administrator. Okay. Then what do I do? Then I have to create a custom profile, right? So simplest way is to create a custom profile because standard profile will never allow you to edit these permissions. So it's going to be pretty simple. All that you need to do is you can clone this profile because you need a system administrator profile. So what you can do is you can just go ahead and clone this profile. So go to this profile and click on clone. Just beside the edit button, there's a button called clone. Click on clone and it's a custom system admin profile. That's what I'm creating. Now this is a custom profile. This is not a standard one. If I click on edit and scroll down, see, now you have the option of updating the object permissions. If you want to control the delete permissions, you can do that. Okay. So now I'm actually removing the delete permissions from here. Or whatever permission, if you don't want the system administrator to edit records, you can do that. If you don't want him to create records, you can do that. Got it? Or whichever profile for that matter, whichever profile you're dealing with. Correct? So this is how the object permissions can be controlled. The same way custom object permissions can also be controlled, right? So here there are two more things, apart from the group that I told you, read, create, edit, delete. There are two more things, view all and modify all. So we are actually going to come into this view all and modify all in the next session. So don't worry about this part. Just focus on this as of now, the group thing. Right. Okay. Now comes the field permissions. We have seen how can we control the permission for objects. Now let's come to the field permissions. So when I say a user cannot edit accounts. So if I restrict this edit permission for account, the user will not be able to edit anything on account. He will only see the account. He will not have an edit option. Got it? So the entire account record gets blocked for him. He just gets to see the data. So any user you think should only see the data just needs a view access. You can remove the edit access from that user. But as I said, sometimes you might want the user to edit the entire record, but not a certain field. Or you want the user to see the entire record, but not a certain field. If you want the user not to see the entire record, then just remove the read permission. When I say read account equals false, I mean read permission I have removed. The user will not get to see any account record. Okay, so account is not at all visible to the user. But if you want that user should see the account but not a particular field, then you can give a read permission here. That's absolutely fine. And we'll have to change the field level security for this, right? So if, in case you want to change the permission for fields, then you just have to go to the profile. For field level security, you don't have to click on edit. For other permission settings, you were clicking on edit. For field level security, don't click on edit. Just scroll down a little, right after your tab setting is over. Now, right after the page layout thing, you will find field level security. So you will get to see the field level security here. All right. In the field level security, you just have to go and see for which object you basically want to control the field level security. Let's say for me, contact email is a field where I don't want everyone to see that field, or I don't want everyone to be able to edit that field. Contact email. So you should go into contact, then go to view. Okay, then click on edit. And for this particular profile, for the system admin profile, what you are doing is you are allowing the email visible or not. So basically you have a list of all the fields for contact here, but my focus is to control the access to email, right? So I'll go to email and I'll say visible not. If you want to make it visible and read only, then you can do this also. If you click on read only, then this field will become read only for this profile, for this profile users. If you just make it visible, then it will be a read write access. If you don't want to want the user to see the value in the field, then you can just remove it, not visible. That's it. Right. So that's how it works. So that's how your field level permissions will work. So anytime you have a requirement where you want the user to see the entire record, but just one or two fields are, what you don't want the user to see or what you don't want the user to edit, then you should do it from the field level security. Got it? Okay. So let me know if anyone has any questions so far. So we have talked about apps, tabs, objects, and fields so far. Let me know any doubts or questions you have so far. So we saw the profile and we saw that it's pretty easy, pretty simple. Decide, figure out the group of users that you have and then you just decide which group of user is going to have what kind of permissions, right? For example, if the sales group, you just have to, think of the permissions that they need and then you just give them that sort of permissions. And then you have a marketing group, you decide and give them the permission. So life is easy so far. It's pretty simple, going smooth. Now comes the problem situation. Think about it. Let's say you have 30 users. You have 10 sales users, 10 marketing users, and 10 customer support users. So try and understand the scenario first, and then we will talk about the solution. Let's say this is what I have. I have 30 people. I have 10 in sales, I have 10 in marketing, 10 in customer support team, and I have defined a profile for each one of them. They need same kind of permission, so I have created a profile for sales, I have created a profile for marketing, I have created a profile for customer support. Everyone is happy with whatever permissions they have. All of a sudden, we have a requirement that one guy from here, okay, one guy from sales needs to work with marketing team for 2 weeks. Okay, so one guy whose name is G, because this guy is very talented. So what the company decided that they want to allow him work with marketing team for 2 weeks. Needs to work with marketing team, and it's only for 2 weeks, not permanently, or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, whatever. Now, since he's working with the marketing team, he's going to work, he's a part of sales team. The profile that he has is sales profile. But because the company wants this person to work on the marketing project also for a couple of weeks, which means he'll need some sort of access on the marketing from the marketing profile as well, right? Now, how are you going to deal with it? Based on what we have understood so far, how are we going to deal with it? Anyone? What is the best way to deal with this? Shall we allow that permission on this entire profile, sales profile? Whatever permission this person needs, shall I give that to the entire profile? Will that be a good thing to do? If I do that, what
Rather
will be the
create a
problem?
custom
Okay, first question is,
create a custom profile.
okay, first question is, if I give all the permissions on this person's profile, whatever permissions are required by this man, if I give it on his profile, the current profile, then what will be the problem?
All salespeople will able to
So then
access
it
the
will be available
marketing
to
profile.
all other people who ideally should not have those permissions, right? So that's something which we do not want. Okay. Now, some custom I could hear. So you can continue. What is the second solution? What is the other solution that you guys can think of? Someone said custom or something. You want to repeat?
I think that's the best solution to have a custom profile for the this particular person who's working on sales
To
and
have a
marketing.
custom
Just
profile for
create a
this particular person. Very good. Very nice solution. So as of now, whatever we know, based on that, this seems to be a good solution. Okay. Problem is that because this guy is working on a particular project, what we have done is, and he needs one or two extra permissions. So what we have done, we create a custom profile for that. Okay. So from three, you end up having four profiles now. Okay. Now, another guy from the sales team thought that, okay, fine, let me also take some initiative. There's another guy called Tejish. He says, okay, I'm going to take an initiative. I'm going to work with customer support team on a special project for 2 weeks. Now, this guy again needs a different set of permission. So if we go with what we just proposed, we should create one more custom profile for this single user. Okay. If the same thing happens for all 10 people here, or maybe all 30 people, on and off, they keep on working on different projects, they keep on supporting different teams. As a system administrator, we'll just have to keep on creating profiles for them, and it keeps on making our things more complicated, right? So creating a custom profile, and let me tell you this, let's also focus on this side. It's only for a 2 weeks. So just going and creating a profile for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, and then again going and deleting that profile again, sending this user back into the actual profile. Okay, a lot of work for system administrator. It can be done through this process, but it's basically not the best way to do it, because right now we are just talking about 1 2 people. When you talk about a big scenario, 100 people, there can be 20 people who are actually working on these kind of small things which other people in their profile are not accessing. They need some additional access which other people do not need, and we cannot go and create a custom profile for each one of them, because that way management is going to become very difficult for us, right? So what is the best thing to do? The best thing is to introduce the second concept here, which is called a permission set. Okay, so what's a permission set? Permission set is also a collection of permissions. This is also a collection of permissions. This is something which can be given to a user on top of the profile. Okay, every user needs to have a profile. Profile is basically the primary set of permissions that the user will have. Each user in your Salesforce will have a profile, and profile will contain the primary set of permissions that you need along with your all other profile mates, right? So all other people in the same profile, they share the same permissions, right? But permission set is something which can be given as a top up or as an additional set of permissions to the user. Got it? So that's how simple it is. The way you have a on your phone, you might be having a base plan and then you have some top ups, some special SMS pack or some special ISD calling pack. Use these kind of things, right? So profile is more like a base plan, and permission set can be a top up, and it can be only given to that particular user. So that way what is happening, you are actually not making any changes to the profile, and actually not changing the profile of the user also. If there is a person, for example, as I said, he needs some let's say a couple of permissions that he wants to work on for 2 weeks. Create a permission set, put those permissions in that permission set, assign that permission set to this user. Got it? After 2 weeks, just revoke that permission set. That's it. Keeping things simple. So that ways you don't have to move him from one profile to other profile. You don't have to create multiple profiles. You don't again have to send him back to the previous profile. So that ways you don't need it. Okay, so where is permission set? Permission set is just beside the profiles, just at the top of profile. In the manage users, there is permission sets. Okay, there are no default permission sets, which means basically there are no standard permission sets. Whenever you need a permission set, you have to create it. So only custom permission sets, no standard permission sets are available. Okay, so just create a permission set. For example, I want to create a permission set to give a permission on campaigns object. Let's say uh, this guy does not have access to campaigns. I just want to give him access to campaigns. Okay. So you can call it whatever you want, campaign permission. So, okay. So when I'm talking about giving campaign permission, what all I need to give? I need to give the tab so that he can access, click on that tab to user interface if he has to access, and whatever level of permission I want to give on campaigns. Let's say read, edit, create, delete, whatever I want to give. So you have to go to objects, campaign object we are talking about. You have to go to campaign where we're going to give permission for campaign. Click on edit. Okay. So for campaign object, do you want to give the campaign tab also? You just select that. Do you want the campaign tab also to be available? And in the object, what level of permission? Read, create, edit, delete. So I want him to have read and create permission. Edit and delete permission I don't. Or let's say read, create, edit. Delete permission I don't want the user to. Okay. If you want, you can control the field permission also. Okay. In case you want, you can control the field permission also here for the campaign object for this user. Okay. Save. Done. Now this campaign permission set basically has the permission to view the campaigns tab and read, create, edit the campaigns. Now I can just go to the users, pick the user who needs the permission. For example, let's say this is the user who needs permission. I'll go to this user, scroll down a little. Don't click on edit, just scroll down. You will see permission set assignments. Click on edit assignment and assign the permission set. So currently we just have one permission set, you can assign it. Save it. So now this user has all the permissions that he gets from his profile plus the permissions that he gets from the permission set. And one user can have multiple permission sets. So for permission set, it's not like a one-to-many kind of thing that a user can have only one permission set. One user can have multiple permission sets. Alright, so for permission sets, that's not the situation. So what you can do is you can have these kind of permission sets. For example, as I said, if I have a permission set defined, now this guy is working on a special project where he needs access to campaign. I'll allow that permission set to this user. After a couple of weeks, when his project is over, we'll just remove that permission set from this user, right? The permission set stays there as it is. After 2 months, again this user says that I have the same project. I give him the same permission set, or some other user, maybe from a customer support team. Another user who comes and says that, okay, I need to work on marketing team, I need campaign permission. I can give the same permission set to this user also, right? So that's how it is actually going to work. So permission set actually helps you define exceptions on the profiles. So profiles, everything can be managed on profiles. Most of the times we will manage, let's say 90-95% of the permissions through profiles itself. But any exceptions that you need to define, when I say exception, I mean if one person in the profile needs permission and other people in the profile do not need permission. Okay. So that's where we are going to use the permission set. All right. Let me know if we have any other questions or doubts here.